Being a good person and doing good deeds really pays off. Well, the heavenly wave bestowed upon Mimi a tremendous merit, allowing her to travel through time after death. Mimi, the big shot of the New World apocalypse, is not calm anymore. She recognized her withered new body, which was less than 1.6 meters tall, but this original body was too pitiful. Her parents both died, and the uncle's family abused her while eating blood Mantou. It was clear that the bright and beautiful young beauty with a flamboyant personality was stunned by a soft bun who had developed a sense of inferiority and cowardice. Mimi is angry. Uncle's family encroached on her property. Hee, selling it for money leaves you nowhere to rest. Auntie has been abusing her for a long time. Beating your face full of blooming flowers makes you know why the flowers are so red. Mimi, who was carrying infinite space, prepared to lie flat against the space, but inadvertently caught the attention of the handsome retired rough man. As a young unmarried woman who has been single for over 30 years and is known as Yen Go, she is very happy. Where can I find this good thing? Go ahead. Lie flat with him. Keywords of the novel. Hell opening. The husband of the Rouge is too sticky without pop-ups, hell opening. The husband of the Rouge is too sticky full collection download txt, hell opening. The husband of the Rouge is too sticky latest chapter reading. Chapter 1001. Little and Poor. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 1001. Little and poor pain, it hurts so much. Not only does it hurt my heart, but it also feels like my body has been crushed by a car. Mimi covered her heart with her hand, furrowed her brows, and tightly closed her eyes. Beads of sweat as big as beans flowed down her cheeks and behind her ears, quietly sliding into the collar. The collar got wet, but it still couldn't make her feel better. In the darkness, a beam of light penetrated Mimi's brain, and then she seemed to have changed. Her soul is attached to a girl born in the 1980s, but she cannot control her body. Like a bystander hiding inside the girl's body, quietly peeking at her from childhood to the colorful years and then to the end of her life. She finished watching the short and pitiful life of the girl. She was angry but powerless. She was angry and didn't earn anything, but couldn't do anything. She could only watch helplessly as she was killed by someone. I know you're here. I'm going to find my parents now. I'll leave this body to you. Help me seek revenge and live a good life. With a light heart, the pain moved away from Mimi. She knew that the poor and pitiful girl ignored her response and left without any attachment. His eyes suddenly opened, and a fierce aura erupted in his eyes. Hatred made his eyes turn red, as if stained with blood and water, terrifying. Mimi sat up from the bed and murmured softly, "Let's go. I'll avenge you. In return, your body belongs to me. Gently close your eyes, a cold smile ripples from your lips. I'll spit out everything I eat and drink. I won't raise a white-eyed wolf, mi daju. Are you ready? I'm here." Mimi panted lightly, her eyebrows furrowed slightly again, lowered her head, and looked at her hands under the moonlight, her eyes showing dissatisfaction. "My hands are quite white, but unfortunately they look like chicken feet and have no meat at all. And there are calluses in the palms of both hands, indicating that there is a lot of work to be done." Pulling the sleeves up again, the old and new scars overlapped and spread throughout the entire arm, leaving no good flesh on the already small arm. Mimi was once again so angry that her heart ached, feeling that the girl who left easily was not worth it. If it were her, they would have to fight and their family would not be able to take care of themselves. Can't I take medicine if I can't fight it? You can also steal knowledge of traditional Chinese medicine if you can't buy medicine, and even if you grab a few pairs of medicine from a pharmacy, you have to mix them into a pair of poison and put them into their diet. If we all die together, how can we still let them bully us like this? Damn it. This vicious family. Mimi let out a light sigh, closed her eyes, focused her mind, and soon she became happy. Fortunately, the space has arrived, and the wooden and spiritual abilities are still there. Although the wooden ability is only at level 1, it is slowly changing the physique of this body. After 48 hours, this body will become 10 times stronger than ordinary people. Now she doesn't have to worry anymore. With her abilities and space, even in the 1980s when she couldn't eat enough or wear warm clothes, she could still live well. After scanning the things in the space, Mimi felt relieved. Before the end of the world, she accidentally obtained a teleportation pearl, but unexpectedly it contained an infinite space. After reading countless novels about reincarnation through time travel, she knew that something was not good. The appearance of space is not a good thing, either death or injury. To survive, one can only strive to fill the space. But her space is different from other spaces in novels. Without a spiritual spring, she can't farm and can only put things inside. She can't even enter it herself. She spent all the property left by her parents and all her savings, only piling up supplies in a small corner. Fortunately, when the apocalypse came, she was in the harbor telling her old high school classmates who were working there about her feelings of parting ways, and her old sister became a zombie. She hid in the port and played hide and seek with 5,000 zombies. It took her half a year to escape with a cargo container and 3,000 zombie legions. She had no place to use her wooden abilities in the harbor, and eventually hid in the deep mountains and forests, taking her 3 months to come out. After coming out, when encountering future teammates, I dare not reveal my space and eat and live with them. In the end, the zombies besieged the city, and she and her teammates fought together on the city wall. However, they did not want to be ambushed by another team, and she was shot down from the city wall. Fortunately, she was a 5th-level superpower who fell off the city wall but did not die. She then killed in all directions below the city, ultimately attracting the Zombie King. The outcome of a level 5 superpower against a level 7 Zombie King is beyond imagination. For the millions of survivors in the city, she did a good deed and died together with the Zombie King. Mimi touched her heart, and there seemed to be the pain from the Zombie King's hands penetrating her heart, which was also the place where the original owner was beaten to death by Mimi. Rolling up her sleeves and glancing at the scar on her arm, Mimi wanted to sigh again. The original owner was born and has been favored by his parents since birth. Although she is a girl, the parents of the Mi family do not prioritize sons over daughters. Due to the poor health of Mimi's mother, she only gave birth to Mimi, which is even more valued by the Mimi family's parents. She lived in a happy world created by her parents from childhood to adulthood, until her parents passed away in a car accident at the age of 11. Both parents passed away, grandparents died early, mother was an orphan, and the only relative and uncle's family moved into her house and took over everything from her. Then the little girl's happy world collapsed. She had endless work to do every day, not only making breakfast and dinner for her family, but also washing their clothes. Auntie and big sister are even more prone to physical abuse, while big uncle turns a blind eye and big brother laughs and watches. Mimi, who has no support, can only live in nightmares with frustration. 6 years of nightmare-like life have turned a bright and flamboyant little girl into a humble and cowardly little pitiful one, not saying a word a day. The only thing that makes her happy is going to school. This is because uncle wanted to gain fame and her father's company reimbursed her tuition and miscellaneous expenses, which allowed her to continue her studies. Until today, she overheard from her aunt that she wanted to drop out of high school and go to the countryside to replace her cousin. She couldn't help but run out and have a big argument with her aunt. As a result, the Tengu returned from outside and punched her in the heart, causing her soul to turn west. He, cold and heartless, even maltreat her after eating blood Mantou, this family is really nothing. Mimi sighed and pulled out a healing potion from the space. Just as she was about to drink it, her hand stopped in mid-air. No, she can't get this injury for free. She needs to turn it into a deadly weapon for the Midaju family. After drinking the medicine, the scars will disappear 48 hours later, and she is not sure if she will pull Mi Daju off her horse during this time. Putting the healing potion back into the space, Mimi sat motionless on the small bed. The narrow space was as hot as a steamer, making Mimi sweat profusely. Sweat slid over the wound, and the piercing pain not only made Mimi scream but also made her unable to wait for revenge. Standing up and gently opening the door, the wooden door creaked without alerting anyone. Mimi kept pushing the door without changing her movements until a minute later when she confirmed there was no movement upstairs before she crawled out through the crack in the door. The original owner lived in Haicheng, and both of his parents were shipyard workers. His father graduated from college and worked as an engineer in a shipyard, while his mother worked as an accountant in the shipyard. Both of them had good incomes. When Mimi was in elementary school, she didn't choose to attend the shipyard-affiliated elementary school, but instead chose the best first elementary school in the city. Therefore, the whole family moved out of the shipyard's family yard and bought a nearby 2-story small building to move in. Note: in the 1970s and 1980s, national education generally lasted for 5 years in primary school, 2 years in junior high school, and 2 years in high school. However, in some areas, it was 3 years in junior high school. My family is in the Northeast, and my mother attended junior high school in the 1970s, for a total of 3 years. It's been over a year now, and finally I can open a new book. I love killing and I'm back. End of this chapter. Chapter 2. 002 Mysterious Package. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 2002 Mysterious Package. There are 4 rooms upstairs, originally owned by the original owner. After the uncle's family moved in, the lobby sister Mina occupied her room. The lobby brother Mi Chang lived in one room, while the uncle's father Mi Daju and Aunt Xiao Fenghua lived in the master bedroom of the original owner's parents. The remaining room was originally a study. Mi Daju, who came from the countryside, only graduated from junior high school and didn't need it at all. However, he used the excuse of keeping his brother's belongings to drive the original owner to the miscellaneous room on the first floor. Mimi stood in the lobby on the first floor, her gaze swept over the living room, then glanced at the nearby kitchen and tiptoed in. The kitchen is very clean, and the original owner is usually cleaning it up. The uncle's family doesn't even enter the kitchen, so this has become the original owner's small world. I opened the kitchen cabinet and glanced at it. There were 10 pounds of rice and 5 pounds of white noodles, without any coarse grains. Instead, there were more than 10 pieces of rice and a piece of pork weighing about 1 pound. The pork should have been cooked and eaten last night, but the original owner was beaten to death. Mi Daju and his family were afraid of accidents and left the original owner in their room without asking her to cook dinner. The dinner was arranged in the shipyard cafeteria, so there was still a piece of pork left at home. Is it still good to leave pork in the refrigerator overnight in the summer? Mimi's smell of pork is not right, as if it has gone bad. Mimi sneered and looked at the pork, feeling lost in thought. After the apocalypse, researchers have developed many good things, and it seems that she has also put many of them in space, one of which is a potent laxative. Mimi had an idea and started stroking the pork before quietly returning to the room. Close the door, put the bed made of several wooden boards into the space, carefully examine the ground, and find a pry bar from the space. Lift the several wooden boards in the middle position under the bed and put them aside until they are exposed to a size of 1 meter square before stopping. Then, reach out and feel the edge position, touch a protrusion, press down, and with a light click, Mimi smiles. The parents of the Mi family have a good income, totaling over 150 yuan. Sometimes, the Mi father can still receive rewards from the factory, while the Mi mother privately makes clothes for people to earn money. Although buying a house cost a lot of money, the family of 3 mainly eats and drinks in the shipyard, with no major expenses. Over the past decade, they have still saved a lot of money. These money and rice coins were not saved, along with a high-quality sheepskin jade pendant, property certificate, and packages of strict and solid materials, all packed in a wooden box made of agarwood, hidden under the floor of the miscellaneous room. The original owner of these money was also aware of it, but in recent years, no matter how the uncle's family attacked her, she never thought of taking it out and running away with it, because traveling is not so easy now. You need to provide proof when traveling, and without a letter of introduction and proof, you can't even leave the city. With Mi Daju and his family present, as the guardian, Mi Daju won't let go. Who dares to provide her with proof? The original owner had no way to escape and could only endure. Mimi smiled sarcastically. Mi Daju has always believed that his younger brother's family has money, and both his younger brother and his wife are formal workers who earn a lot of money in a month. After buying a house, it is impossible to have no money left. Therefore, he immediately interrogated the original owner where the money was after moving into his younger brother's house. Mimi couldn't possibly say it, looking confused and unsure. Mi Daju has no choice but to ask his wife Qiao Fenghua to beat Mimi up and down while searching for his brother's inheritance. Mi Daju's focus is on the bedroom and study of Mi's parents. He believes that these two places are the most likely places to hide money, and after finding nothing, he moves the focus to Mimi's room. Mimi's room is not small, and there is also a small changing room. There are plenty of clothes inside, but there is not a penny left. Counting the money in the box, Mimi's mouth twitched slightly. If Mi Daju knew that his family's money was left in the miscellaneous room, would he regret driving me here? There wasn't much money, Mimi quickly finished counting, totaling 10,000 yuan. There were also some unique cloth, grain, oil, and meat tickets of this era, but over time, they had already expired and could not be used. 10,000 yuan is nothing in later generations, but it is nothing in this era, equivalent to millions of millionaires in the future. Mimi was surprised that her parents had saved so much money, but there was no expression on her face. She put all the money back into the box and picked up the sheepskin jade pendant to flip through. The sheep fat jade is warm and moist, and its value is evident at a glance. The jade pendant is in the shape of a gourd, with an orchid carved on the front and the word E engraved on the back. Mimi recalled for a while that this jade pendant should belong to Mimyu, which was worn by Mimyu Dangyi since she was young. Due to the low value of jade in special times, it was also easy to catch fire. This jade pendant was not taken away by Mimyu after she entered the orphanage, and was worn on her body until shortly before her death. Unable to find the origin of the jade pendant, Mimi didn't even think about it. She carefully took it back into the wooden box and opened the only package inside. The clutter room was too dark to see clearly, so Mimi took out a flashlight from the space to light it up and glance down, which surprised her greatly. Oh my goodness! Comrade Mi Jiangwo is amazing. No wonder the country has not given enough rewards. She didn't understand anything else, but she still knew about the design drawings. Although she couldn't understand them, the first piece of paper depicted a large ship, while the rest of the paper depicted the ship's components with numbers written next to them. She couldn't understand the data, but it looked very tall. If she guessed correctly, this drawing should be Mi Jiangwo's latest design ship, and it should be a drawing that is in line with the most advanced international transportation ships. Mimi couldn't help but think more. The package was tightly packed, and even if the couple died, they didn't hand it over. It seems that their death is not that simple. Is she cheap? Are her parents spies? That's not right. Mi Jiangwo was born in the countryside and is an authentic rural boy. He has been a poor farmer for 5 generations and has never been abroad. He has never worked in university and has never had contact with outsiders. He knows only those people from schools and factories. Moreover, if he is a spy, the country cannot be completely unaware and always makes excuses to reward him. Therefore, this suspicion must be denied. It's not a spy, so he should be a scientific researcher who has made great contributions to the country, lurking in a shipyard to secretly design and select ships or submarines for the country. That's right, the jade pendant and rice mother have almost never been taken off, but before the accident, she put it in a box, indicating that she must have discovered something or knew what danger was, otherwise she would never let the jade pendant leave. Mimi quickly flipped back again, as if there was nothing special. Mimi carefully touched the edge of the blueprint, and sure enough, there was an interlayer in the blueprint. Carefully separate the front and back interlayers and find 5 thin sheets of paper as thin as cicada wings from inside. Mimi swallowed her saliva. That's it, barbecue. She knows something amazing, will she be silenced? End of this chapter. Chapter 3. 003 Advance Payment of Interest. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 3003 Advance Payment of Interest. After carefully scanning 5 sheets of paper, it was confirmed that they were blueprints for submarines. Mimi didn't dare to look at them anymore, so she carefully placed them separately and finally put them into a wooden box, which she then put into space. After sitting for half a day, Mimi finally calmed down and pondered what to do with this blueprint. To whom? Even if she hands it over to the country, she doesn't have a reliable person to ask her to do it. If it's not possible, she will have to involve herself, which would not be worth the loss. After finally being reborn, she didn't want to die so inexplicably. This thing cannot be seen in person for the time being. She needs to find someone she can trust and has a connection with, and then think about whether to hand it over and whether it's worth her risk. Returning the wooden board to its original position, after some thought, Mimi filled the pit under the board with another wooden box, filled it with food, and put it back into the pit. She made the bed again and glanced at the thin and small blanket that the original owner had used. Mimi couldn't help but sigh again. Fortunately, it is summer now, and if it were winter, it would still freeze and cause problems. Never mind, let's take a break for a while. Xiao Fenghua has already given her a name to go to the countryside, and it's too late to go back on her word. She only has 5 days to seek revenge, and time is tight. She needs to gather her energy to deal with tomorrow's situation. Mimi woke up in a burst of scolding and noise. Lack of sleep made her have a splitting headache. Listening to the noise outside, Mimi sneered and closed her eyes again. Cheap skin, little white-eyed wolf, I'll offer you food, drink, and even confess my wrongdoing. I've been slacking off day by day, and the sun's been scorching my butt. I even want to cook for you as an elder, and I'm not afraid of choking you. Do you have that fate for me to serve you? Little bastard, why don't you get up and cook? What time is it? With the sound of shouting and cursing, there was a violent knocking on the door. The wooden door was knocked with a loud bang, and wood shavings and dust fell off with the vibration. Mimi ignored and continued to sleep with her head down. Knock it, even if I knock it to death, I won't open it for you. Do you want me to cook for you? Dream it. I'm afraid I'll have life to do it, but you won't have life to eat it. If you have the ability, you can smash the door. If you smash it open, I'll lose. Son of a bitch, hurry up and open the door, get out and cook. If you don't open it again, I'll smash it. Did you hear me? Are you deaf? You little girl, if you don't open the door and see if I don't discount your legs. No matter how much Xiao Fenghua scolds, Mimi won't open the door. Although she's not afraid of her, she can take her life with just one finger, but the timing is wrong. Before we can even break our relationship, she has to stay at home and find evidence of Midaju's crime. She wants to send Midaju to prison, expel Xiao Fenghua, and let Mina go to the countryside with her, while also cleaning up the big hall brother who caused the original owner to die. This family must not be better off. Death is too cheap for them, taking away what they care about the most, and letting their family live a miserable life is the best revenge for their original owner. Mimi ignored her, and Xiao Fenghua felt helpless as she cursed and walked into the kitchen, cooking her first breakfast in 6 years. After Mi Jiangwo's death, Mi Daju took over Mi Jiangwo's class. After graduating from junior high school, she had no job and could only enter the logistics department. Xiao Fenghua took over from Mi's mother Party Yi's position and became an accountant without her Party Yi's ability. As illiterate, she could only help in the kitchen. Mi Dazhu is good at studying. He has used Mi Jiangluo's contacts to work as the director from a small logistic staff in the shipyard in 6 years. Xiao Fenghua has also become the team leader of the kitchen relying on Mi Dazhu. There are tens of thousands of shipyard staff and family members who have to eat. The team leader has to cook, so Xiao Fenghua's cooking is good. At least Mimi smells good, especially braised pork belly. Xiao Fenghua started cursing before the meal, and even after finishing the meal, she didn't care about throwing her rice bowl on the table and followed her husband to work. Mina had already made an appointment with her classmates to go shopping. After finishing her meal, she left, and Mi Chang didn't care. After taking a few bites, she ran away with a group of thugs. When Mi came out of the miscellaneous room, there was no one left at home. The dishes on the table were not properly handled, and when I entered the kitchen, I saw that the meat in the kitchen cabinet was gone. Mimi felt relieved. The laxative is the latest research developed after the apocalypse, extracted from mutated plants, and its efficacy goes without saying, it is remarkable. I hope they can hold on and have a good time in the next 3 days. After strolling around downstairs, Mimi ran to the rooms of Mi Dazhu and Xiao Fenghua on the 2nd floor. Without any surprise, the door was locked. Mimi pulled out a black headband from her head, and in less than 5 seconds, the door lock opened. Pushing open the door, I took a quick glance and headed straight to the 2 locked cabinets in the bedroom. After opening the cabinet and reaching down to touch it for a while, a floral cloth bag appeared in Mimi's hand. Mimi squinted her eyes and counted the money in her hand. It was 1,360 yuan, including food, cloth, meat, industrial, and thermos tickets, as well as a watch ticket and a bicycle ticket. The money and tickets were confiscated, and Mimi took action on another cabinet. As a result, she found 380 yuan in several old clothes of Xiao Fenghua. This should be Xiao Fenghua's private money. But these are not enough. The logistics department of the shipyard is a place where there is fuel and water. Otherwise, it would be impossible for Mi Dazhu to save over 1,300 yuan in 6 years. This 1,000 yuan is just a small amount and should be used for daily household expenses. The larger amount must be hidden separately. Can Mi Dazhu, who firmly believes in money, trust Xiao Fenghua to keep the money? The big head must have been kept by oneself. The box returned to its original state, exited the room, and turned around to hit the nearby study with his head. The study was very dark, and as soon as the window cloth was pulled in, it was afraid of attracting suspicion. Mimi didn't turn on the lights and slowly searched in the study using the outside light. 10 minutes later, nothing was found, and Mimi was not in a hurry. It seemed as expected, but before leaving, she sneered at the portrait of Mi Dazhu on the wall and turned back to Mina's room. Mina's room is still very familiar to her, and the furniture used inside is still the same as the original owners. Mimi only glanced and stopped paying attention, heading straight to the corner under the room window. There was a semi-new and timeless piano in the corner, and Mimi touched the piano cover with both hands. She didn't open it and closed her eyes. The scene of the original owner sitting in the room practicing the piano involuntarily came to mind. Dang Yi looked at her daughter with a gentle smile on her face, while Mi Jiangluo holding a newspaper beside her, his gaze fixed on his wife and daughter. A serious and stereotyped smile was visible on her face. What a warm and loving family, but none of them came to a good end in the end. I just sighed at fate and hoped that their family could reunite in heaven. Mimi didn't think much about it anymore. She bent down and easily lifted the corner of the piano to one side. Then she turned over the carpet and pulled out 2 floor strips. Not surprisingly, 3 dark gray packages appeared side by side. At the same time, in the office of the director of the logistics department of the shipyard, Mi Dazhu was discussing life with the beautiful new clerk. As they reached their climax, they exerted force under their bodies. Unexpectedly, with a plop, the force was too strong, not one of them was tight, and a foul odor filled the room. End of this chapter. Chapter 4. 004 First Collection of Interest, 2. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 4004 First Collection of Interest, 2. The beautiful clerk thought that Midaju was just farting, so he gave a stiff smile and, holding back the stench, pulled Midaju to comfort and help find an excuse. What did my brother eat in the morning? Did that old bitch deliberately give you some exhaust food? I knew she was not kind. She likes farting when she ate too much soybeans. Did she drink soybean milk in the morning? Midaju stiffened his body and glanced at the beautiful little clerk under him, wishing he could slap her to death, so as not to spread bad news and tarnish his reputation. The beautiful clerk didn't know, but he knew that feces and urine were flowing down his buttocks, and the stench was the smell of feces and urine, not fart. In order to maintain his image, Midaju didn't care about dirtying his pants and quickly lifted them to cover up his embarrassment. It must be that wife who did it. If I don't beat her to death when I go back, it's okay. I'm not in the mood today. You go out first, and I'll see you tomorrow. The beautiful clerk felt that something was not quite right. At this moment, Midaju's legs were tightly clenched, his expression tense, as if he had been holding his urine but couldn't go to the bathroom. She wanted to ask, but accidentally caught Midaju's pants. At this glance, she almost felt nauseous about breakfast. A yellow and white substance with green feces kept flashing in her mind. The clerk couldn't help but pull up his skirt and quickly ran out, lying on the spittoon in the hallway, retching. She just had intimate contact with that kind of thing. Ouch. Oh my goodness, kill me. I don't want to see him again today, not even this year. Two staff members from other departments walked through the corridor and were immediately startled, and they saw the beautiful staff member vomiting happily. They then exchanged a glance. The new beautiful little clerk seems to be pregnant. Midaju is going to be greedy for big things. On the other side, in the shipyard cafeteria, Xiao Fenghua pointed at the noses of her 5 employees and scolded them arrogantly. Let me say again, there are many workers and families in the shipyard, so there are many meals to be cooked, but it is not allowed to waste. When you eat a spoonful of food, more than half of the spoonful of food is enough to eat, like braised pork belly. 2 pieces of food for 1 person is enough. If you give more food to my mother, you will be on your head. Of course, it's not allowed to waste the meat left over the day before. It's also a good breakfast to put the leftover rice and brown rice together to cook congee. Ah! She was very excited about what she said above, but the 5 people below were silently roast. Are you really treating yourself like a garlic? Without Midaju to support her, she's like a bird. Holding chicken feathers all day long as a seasonal arrow, inserting chicken feathers and pretending to be a phoenix. She also taught them not to waste, and asked them to sell the remaining meat as usual. There must be some leftover meat. One day, if she doesn't steal a pound of meat for herself and take it home, there will be some leftover, which is also the piece she takes home. 5 people secretly hated Xiao Fenghua for not being a good person and causing trouble when she had nothing to do. They wished they could cover her mouth and beat her up now. At this moment, Xiao Fenghua suddenly let out a fart, the sound of which was deafening. Not only did it startle the 5 of them, but also Xiao Fenghua herself stopped talking in shock. Immediately after, a familiar smell spread, and the kitchen, filled with the aroma of food, suddenly emitted another scent that was too strong and rushed to the brain. The members of the other groups, including those present, all coincidentally smelled it. Then, more than 50 men and women from the back kitchen of the first cafeteria rushed out of the kitchen at the same time, leaving only Xiao Fenghua standing alone on the spot. Xiao Fenghua lowered her head and realized that yellow and white feces had already flowed all over her pants. Ah! Xiao Fenghua's cry of collapse did not elicit sympathy, but instead made a group of people outside who vomited even more disgusted with her. What is it called? They still wanted to scream, but after pulling the ground, they didn't say anything, but instead she shouted happily. Xiao Fenghua's first thought was to find her husband. She had to go to his office to hide, and then ask him to come home and bring her a pair of pants that she couldn't change. Otherwise, how would she go out and meet people if she looked like she was? Xiao Fenghua rushed out of the kitchen without caring, and a thin yellow and white substance mixed with green feces flowed with her as she ran, and there was a growing trend. It goes without saying that anyone passing by couldn't help but lie down on the road and vomit in the dark, and at the same time, scold Xiao Fenghua in a bloody manner. It's too deceitful. What class are you working on if you have a bad stomach? Is that the only $2 we need for medical treatment at home? It's really not possible to buy some medicine and take it at home. Why don't you go to the bathroom when you're about to pull it out? You're not a good kid who can't hold back. The key is not to deceive them. It's not easy to have a meal these days. It doesn't matter if you pull it everywhere. We vomited out everything we ate in the morning, isn't it a waste? Everyone secretly felt distressed for the porridge they ate in the morning, but none of them said it, because the things on the ground were so disgusting, so they thought about eating in the morning, retching. Xiao Fenghua was afraid that people would see who she was, so she didn't forget to cover her face when she ran out. She couldn't control what was underneath, but she had to cover it up. So Xiao Fenghua's feces and urine went all the way until it suddenly stopped in front of the small building where the logistics department worked. Just as Xiao Fenghua was running wildly on the road, Mi Dazhu was also rushing out. When he ate meat in the morning, he felt that the meat taste was not right, but the smell of braised pork belly and heavy oil and salt covered the rotten smell. He didn't think much about it. He ate half of a bowl of braised pork belly, and now it seems that the meat is responsible for the trouble. At this point, his stomach had already started to moan for a while, and it was painful as if his intestines had been tied up. He just wanted to go home quickly to change his pants and use the restroom. If possible, he could also go to the hospital. One buried his head and ran downstairs, while the other rushed upstairs with his face covered. In a hurry, one of the two people collided without paying attention, and they rolled down the stairs to the lobby on the first floor. Ah, help me! Xiao Fenghua's screams echoed through the small office building of the logistics department, attracting a crowd to watch. Moreover, there was too much noise on the first floor, and people from the logistics department and other departments on the same floor came out. Mi Dazhu couldn't bear the stomachache, and Chrysanthemum was tightly stretched, not daring to relax at all. As a result, the collision was over, and Chrysanthemum loosened, causing another yellow and white fecal substance to flow down her pants. Done. Mi Dazhu closed his eyes tightly, his face full of lovelessness. The image that has been painstakingly managed for many years has been completely destroyed today. Now, it's good. In less than an hour, he will become the laughing stock of the entire factory. It's all this damn old lady. Not to mention the bad meat he ate, he even bumped into him without thinking, otherwise he wouldn't be so embarrassed. Mi Dazhu stared angrily at Xiao Fenghua, wishing he could swallow her alive. Thinking of the tender and beautiful little clerk in the office, and then lowering his head to look at his shameful old wife who was howling like a fat pig, Mi Dazhu's eyes flashed with a hint of malice. It's Chinese New Year, it's time to kill pigs, no, it's time to change wives. End of this chapter. Chapter 5. 005 Advance Payment of Interest, 3. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 5005 Advance Payment of Interest, 3. Xiao Fenghua, who was lying on the ground, immediately realized that she had hit her own man. Who made his pants too familiar. She had just bought them for 12 yuan yesterday, and it was still her first time wearing them today. Oh, Dazhu, it's really amazing. I don't have the face. Wait a moment, you're. Xiao Fenghua cried and threw herself into Midaju's arms, wanting to roll around in the arms of her elders. Unexpectedly, as soon as she threw herself in, a corner of her eye flew over and caught sight of something familiar. This is... Xiao Fenghua reached out her hand in disbelief and touched the yellow and white fecal thing on the ground, then sniffed it under her nose. Ugh! The familiar odor rushed into Xiao Fenghua's nose, making her immediately vomit. Mi Dazhu was tightly hugged by Xiao Fenghua, with no place to hide. Underneath him were yellow and white feces, while on top of him was his wife spitting out like a spittoon. Ugh! Smelling the sour smell emitted by Xiao Fenghua and the strong smell of feces in the air, a yellow and white fecal substance flashed in his brain under his buttocks. The two odors surged, and Mi Dazhu couldn't help but vomit along. Xiao Fenghua was half lying on Mi Dazhu's body. He couldn't hold back and didn't even have time to turn his head. He vomited all of it into Xiao Fenghua's back and neck collar. As a result, Mi Dazhu's vomit was all over Xiao Fenghua's back and clothes. The onlookers were already trying to hold back, but couldn't resist seeing this scene anymore. They all ran out, one by one, holding onto the wall and vomiting wildly, so the shipyard experienced a magnificent scene that had not been seen in more than 20 years. From the logistics department building near the factory entrance to the kitchen lobby on the left side of the center of the factory, everyone was vomiting wildly. Director Li, who received the news, thought that the employees had eaten the wrong food and caused food poisoning. He was so scared that he immediately called the police and called a large number of ambulances to the factory to pull people. After putting down the phone, he rushed to the scene as soon as possible and joined the vomiting army before reaching the small building. In order to avoid punishment, Director Li and others persisted in charging inside while vomiting. When they rushed into the small building, they had already vomited bile and were about to vomit it out. Director Li and the dozen or so factory leaders who rushed after him all regretted it at this moment. Isn't it good to stay in the office drinking tea? Why are you running here like you're trying to die? Can we engage in production, propaganda, and find ways to improve productivity and make more contributions to the country? I got kicked in the head by a donkey and ran here to suffer. The ambulance from the shipyard hospital arrived very promptly. In less than 3 minutes of Director Li's appearance, a large number of medical staff arrived at the scene. When they rushed to the factory area in a hurry, sweating profusely, everyone was stunned. What a big accident is this? Why are so many people vomiting? Okay. At least hundreds of people are visually vomiting. Ah. Director Li was also recruited. Director Xiao and Deputy Factory Director Zhang are also present. Director Hua and Deputy Director Lu have vomited up all the overnight meals, haven't they? It seems like I vomited acid water. Wait a moment, what's this smell like? Strong laxatives are too powerful, and their taste is naturally very pleasing. There is a saying that goes, top wind smells 10 miles, which is used to describe people, and it can also be used in this place. Ugh. Standing in the first row, the young nurse on the first day of work couldn't help but vomit along with her. The scene was too exciting and the smell was too strong, much stronger than the smell of the corpses they dissected in the hospital. As a result, the rescuers became part of the rescued army, and dozens of medical staff wearing white pendants also joined in. When more than a dozen public security personnel arrived, the scene could no longer be seen, and breathing became a luxury. Even the most poisoned was that several out of the 50 people in the lobby closest to Mi Dazhu and his wife had fainted. It's not that their physical fitness is too poor, but that the couple is still making feces, and the smell continues to increase and worsen. They can't bear it anymore, and they can't even run because they feel tired and can only faint. Seeing this scene, more than 10 police stations stood at the entrance of the factory area, hesitating to step forward. Although they were far away, the smell was already very strong. In order to prevent them from becoming part of it, everyone unanimously decided to urgently use gas masks and then save people. Those who are less poisoned, and have the strength to walk out have already begun to rub against the factory gate. Although the speed is slow, fortunately they can save themselves. Those who are moderately poisoned have simply crawled on the ground, unable to do anything, with weak legs and no strength to walk out. Those who are more poisoned have no choice but to faint along with the people in the building. They vomit until their legs are weak and cannot exert any strength, and are far from the gate. They can only wait for someone to come and rescue them. By the time more than a dozen public security officers and urgently dispatched troops entered the shipyard, Director Lee and a group of factory leaders had already passed out. They were first taken to an ambulance to evacuate, followed by medical staff who had to go back to save people, and then the others in the small building. After everyone was rescued from the factory, the leader of the unit asked more than a dozen employees with mild symptoms to understand what was going on, and they were immediately speechless. What do you usually eat? Why is the thing pulled out so smelly that it can make people faint? This skill is also lacking. In recent years, the food that the people eat is generally similar. The fact that the things they pull out can smell so bad proves that what they eat is definitely different from others. Where can something be different? Ordinary people eat corn flour, steamed buns, sorghum rice and rice, which are all considered good. They definitely eat less refined grains, and even the dual workers working in factories may not be able to eat 1.5 caddies every month. It depends on how many idle people are raised in the family. It's not worth thinking about a large family, and those with a small population may even be able to take a bite. Looking at the last couple who were lifted out, they looked like fat pigs about to be released, which was clearly abnormal in an era of general thinness, especially when Midaju was still a small leader, which became even more suspicious. Mimi didn't expect that before she could take action, someone would suspect her, let alone that her casual actions would cause such consequences. She knew the consequences of using strong laxatives. Back in the day, the odor of the feces excreted by the 5 psychics after taking the medicine could cover the entire base and persist for a long time. The odor was 10 times that of ordinary feces, and the fate of the Mi-Daju couple could be imagined. Otherwise, she wouldn't have taken this medicine, just to make them lose face and give herself enough time to plan. Just as a large number of medical staff rushed to the shipyard, Mina was ashamed and angry, blushing and biting her lower lip. She tightened her skirt and ran tightly against her thighs into the shipyard hospital. Even when I entered the hospital, I didn't dare to scream. I leaned against the wall and entered the emergency room amidst the vomiting of doctors, patients, and family members. The speed was so fast that even the mothers in line didn't react. A foul smell wafted past and then a figure appeared, and the door was closed. Encountered ghosts in broad daylight. Auntie was startled and fell silent. She immediately covered her mouth and looked left and right, only to find that everyone was rushing towards the toilet with their mouths and noses covered, and no one noticed her. Only then did she let go of her worries. After smelling the lingering smell in the air, the aunt couldn't bear it anymore and didn't have time to go to the bathroom. She lay in the corner and vomited wildly. End of this chapter. Chapter 6. 006 Advance Payment of Interest, 4. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 6006 Advance Payment of Interest, 4. Mina, who broke into the emergency room, ignored the doctor's mournful gaze and lay on the edge of the sink, vomiting in the dark. While vomiting, she cursed the old lady for being unreliable and even gave them the broken meat to eat. Otherwise, she wouldn't be so embarrassed today. Recalling the look in her eyes from 4 classmates, especially the disdainful and contemptuous gaze from Gongyu, Mina wished she could dive into the ground without coming out. In the morning, Mina had breakfast and hurriedly went to the cinema to meet her classmates. Today is Gongyu's birthday, and she wants to give her a carefully selected gift to win her heart. It's best to go to her house to celebrate her birthday so that she can see Gong Lei. Gong Lei is Gongyu's 3rd brother, handsome and humorous. His father is also the deputy secretary of the shipyard, and his family has favorable conditions. At first sight, he swore to take him down and become the daughter-in-law of the Gong family. Halfway through, Mina felt a slight pain in her stomach. She didn't take it seriously and was the first to run to the gathering place to wait for Gong Yu's arrival. Mina patted her chest and said, "Fortunately, I came out early." Seeing me so proactive, Gong Yu must be very happy now. Looking down at the paper bag in her hand, Mina smiled even more proudly. She chose a scarf from Haishur for Gong Yu, which was novel in style, bright in color, and still made of silk. It was a bit expensive, costing her 13 yuan, but fortunately it was a new style. There were only 2 in the supply and marketing community, and it was still worth it. Not long after, Gong Yu arrived, along with Li Feifei. Seeing Li Feifei, Mina's face immediately turned pale. Li Feifei is the daughter of Director Li. Although she is engaged, her admiration for Gong Lei is not less than hers when she sees her. If she goes crazy and says everything she wants to get married, with the favor of the Li family, she may actually be accepted. Once she withdraws, what else will happen to her afterwards? Mina secretly hated, but couldn't offend Li Feifei, so she had to raise her smiling face to look at the two of them. "Gong Yu, Feifei, are you here? How did you meet each other?" Gong Yu knew Mina's thoughtfulness and was very pleased with Mina's pursuit of her. She raised her chin disdainfully and lightly said, Feifei came to me." After speaking, he also glanced at Li Feifei beside him. Li Feifei is not very good looking, she can only be considered delicate, but her family background is good, and she needs to look up just by her family background. Li Feifei held Gong Yu's arm and secretly glared at Mina several times. When Gong Yu looked at her, she put away her gaze and smiled as she looked back at her. "Today is your birthday, and of course you have to go pick you up." As soon as the conversation ended, the other 2 female classmates who had made an appointment also arrived. Seeing everyone gathered, Gong Yu smiled and said, "Let's go. Let's go watch a movie first, then have dinner, and finally play at my house. My brothers and sisters-in-law are also here today, and we're celebrating my birthday together." Upon hearing this, Mina saw Gong Lei and her eyes immediately lit up. She eagerly handed the gift in her hand to Gong Yu and said, "Gong Yu, happy birthday to you. This is the gift I gave you. The first gift will definitely win Gong Yu's favor. Who doesn't like the gift? With her as the leader, will the others still be slow?" Just Mina frowned slightly. "My stomach seems to be hurting even more. I won't be coming today, will I?" Never, she doesn't want to go home because of this. If she doesn't see Gong Lei, isn't all her hard work in vain? Gong Yu was still very happy and was about to receive the gift, but when she saw Mina's face not looking good and gloomy, she immediately became unhappy. The outstretched hand withdrew and said, "What do you mean? Who didn't want to give it to but didn't force you to show your face to?" Mina was taken aback and said, "No, it's because my stomach is uncomfortable. Don't misunderstand me. If I'm not sincere, I won't come, right?" It sounds good, but Mina still secretly hates Gong Yu in her heart. It's not good if your stomach is uncomfortable. You have too much to do. If it weren't for your brother's sake, I wouldn't be too lazy to serve you. My heart was filled with dark energy, and my stomach was even more painful. After a few rounds of dark energy, I suddenly felt the chrysanthemum relax and a stream of liquid flowed down my thighs. Gong Yu felt that Mina was right too. Although she was not feeling well, why not give the gift that came for nothing? So she frowned and extended her hand again. Just then, she suddenly smelled a foul smell. "What's the smell?" Gong Yu pinched her nose and looked left and right, but didn't notice anything unusual. Just as she was puzzled, she heard a scream. "Mina, you're pulling your pants." It was Li Feifei who made Mina lose face by shouting out loud. It was great to see Mina's rival lose face, and she couldn't let go of such a good thing. It's just that Li Feifei was careless. She never expected Mina to pull out such a foul-smelling thing. It was just a mouth, nose, and mouth full of foul odor, and she couldn't help but turn her head and vomit. When Gong Yu and the others heard Li Feifei shouting, their eyes had already swept towards Mina's thigh, and the yellow-green liquid flowed all over the ground. Ah, vomit. With Li Feifei's sample, Gong Yu and the others couldn't help but turn their heads and start vomiting wildly. At the entrance of the cinema, there were not only 5 of them. When Mina's stench came out, no one stood within a radius of 10 meters, all lying down and vomiting. Mina vomited most violently. She vomited all the braised pork belly she ate in the morning. Mina, you're disgusting, nauseous. Li Feifei vomited while still burying Mina, and must make Mina lose face. Mina was furious from the bottom of her heart, wishing she could slap Li Feifei to death. So many people have heard her name. Tomorrow, no, I'm afraid her reputation will be ruined by night. Not to mention Gong Lei, other men may not want to marry her after hearing her name. Can she still get married? After vomiting for over a minute, he struggled to swallow the vomit in his mouth, stood up, and gave Li Feifei a fierce glare, his eyes flashing with a killing intent, and he ran away without looking back. It's too far from home here, time is running out, and her stomach is still hurting. She needs to go to the hospital to see a doctor, first to stop pulling, and then find a way to notify her parents to bring her washed pants. The cinema is only 5 minutes away from the shipyard hospital. In just these 5 minutes, Mina harmed countless passers-by. With her as the center point, everyone within a radius of 50 meters suffered. She still ate less meat and only pulled out a little. If she were like the couple of Midaju, there might not be many people who could stand up on the street and spit at this time. So, following the unprecedented, grand scene of the shipyard in 20 years, the street where the cinema is located also saw a grand scene that was not seen in 1,000 years. This scene caused a sensation throughout the city. Mina not only has a bad reputation but also has a bad reputation, and she is like a stinky street. End of this chapter. Chapter 7. 007 Digging Your Eyes. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 7007 Digging Your Eyes. Not far from the shipyard hospital, Mi Chang is boasting with a group of friends that his pocket money has increased again this month. His father gave him 10 yuan and said he will buy him a watch to play with next month. Really? Your father is really kind to you. Unlike me, my father always urges me to improve and scolds me as a lazy bone who only knows how to eat and wait for death. The young man who said this raised his lips slightly, and his mocking smile flashed away, so fast that it was hard to catch. My old man is the same. Anyway, that's all for me. He can say whatever he likes and let me go into the factory, work hard all day. It's better to wander around the street and see beautiful women. The young man's triangular eyes rolled and happened to pass by a girl, causing his gaze to involuntarily stick in. A few young people around Mi Chang talked roast's old man, and Mi Chang looked at them with a proud expression. Humph, can you compare with me? I am the only child in my family. The old man will still have to rely on me for retirement. Without me, who will bury him after he dies? Suddenly, Mi Chang's expression changed, his eyebrows furrowed, and he twisted his body to look around. What's wrong? With a puzzled voice, the others looked at Mi Chang and saw him wriggling back and forth like a maggot. Everyone approached in confusion and greeted him. Are you feeling unwell? I can't go to the hospital, it's close here. Does it hurt in the stomach? Why is it sweating so much? When it comes to stomach pain, Mi Chang reluctantly nodded and said, maybe I ate the wrong thing in the morning. Thinking of the piece of meat he had eaten in the morning, Mi Chang's face didn't look good and he complained inwardly that his mother had made him the bad meat to eat. Are you going to the hospital or not? Let's take a look. Mi Chang shook his head and said, how much does it cost to go to the hospital? I'll just go to the restroom. You guys wait for me here, I'll go home. This place is close to home and can be reached by walking in less than 5 minutes. It would be more convenient to go home and use the restroom. Moreover, even if he wants to solve it outside, he still needs toilet paper. After speaking, without waiting for others to persuade him again, Mi Chang quickly left his friends and rushed towards the road home. As his figure disappeared into the corner of the road, the faces of the young people who were circling around him changed again, mocking and contemptuous. It's really a stomachache. Hee, I act like a young master every day. If it weren't for his wealth, I wouldn't be too lazy to hold him. Isn't this kind of person good? With a simple mind and well-developed limbs, it's easy to fool, otherwise where would we get the money to spend? Ha, that's right. With a simple mind, he doesn't think about anything. We still have money at home, so he deserves to give us money to spend. Mi Chang didn't know how his friends would see him like this, treating him like an ATM. If it weren't for Mi Daju always giving him money to spend, these people wouldn't have taken him to play. At this moment, he had already rushed into the front door of the Mi family and was heading towards the bathroom on the first floor. 10 minutes ago, when Mimi found what she was looking for, she was in a good mood. Thinking about her next plan, she turned around and entered the bathroom. Since she has already registered to go to the countryside, she will not be allowed to escape. The consequences of not going to the countryside are not something she can bear. And the revenge of the original owner has been avenged. This city is no longer suitable for her, and she will not come back in the future. But before leaving, she received a batch of goods and exchanged some money to accompany her. Although I received over 1,000 yuan from Mi Daju, which may seem like a lot, this amount of money is not enough to buy a house in Beijing. She is going to live in Beijing, and she is going to buy a courtyard house in Beijing, with 4 or 5 seats waiting for the price to rise. Then lie flat and be a happy landlady. Then I will take the entrance exam at Beijing Normal University and become a proud teacher of the people. When I have the opportunity in the future, I will pursue a master's degree and pursue a doctoral degree. In this life, I must fulfill my previous dream and stay at the university to teach. Mimi's dream stems from her laziness and lack of ambition. People's teachers have high salaries and good treatment, and she believes that teaching and educating people is a great career and is respected. The students who have been taught can make contributions to their country after achieving something, and at the same time, they can also fulfill their wishes as a lazy cancer patient. Therefore, Mimi's first dream is to become a teacher for the people. Accustomed to staying in the apocalypse, Mimi remained vigilant at all times, especially in the dangerous environment of the Mimi family. So as soon as she entered the bathroom to take a shower, her mental energy was released, and before Mi Chang entered the hospital, she noticed it. Mimi's eyes twitched and she came up with a plan. Mi Chang is not a good person. A few days after Mi Daju and his family moved into Mi's house, the original owner was about to take a shower and his clothes were not taken off yet. Mi Chang was in a hurry to go to the bathroom and knock on the door to enter. Fortunately, the original owner locked the door at that time, but still startled the original owner. At that time, Mi Chang was lost in thought when he saw the button on the shirt that the original owner had untied. Afterwards, every time the original owner took a shower, Mi Chang would find an excuse to use the restroom. The original owner was furious, but there was nothing he could do about Mi Chang. He felt like he was always doing the right thing but didn't think much about it. The original owner had a simple mind, but Mimi guessed roughly what was going on. It's not difficult to guess Mi Chang's dirty thoughts, and since she guessed it, she wouldn't let Mi Chang go. So Mimi quickly decorated the bathroom and stood by the bucket to play with the water. Mi Chang was in a hurry to use the restroom, but didn't pay attention to the sound of water coming from inside. He pushed the door and entered. I didn't expect the door to open one step faster than him. He pushed the door with great force and couldn't retract it. He followed the opening of the door panel and rushed into the bathroom. Originally, he could stand still, but he tripped over the threshold and ran out towards the bathroom floor. Intuitively, Mi Chang widened his eyes and looked at the ground, wanting to lean his hands on the ground to avoid hitting his face. However, he didn't want the bathroom floor to have water, which was too slippery and his hands didn't support him. He slid forward half a meter and then hit his head on the ground. It was this half meter that Mi Chang was hit hard. Even if he killed him, he couldn't believe there were nails in the bathroom, and they were still nails that stood up on wooden doors. Ah! My eyes, ah! Help me. The nail was too long, and Mi Chang was very awesome. The nail and the board were also taken with him when he sat up. He reached out to cover his eyes, but there was a board blocking him, and he did not dare to drag the nail and the board down by himself. He could only cry in pain for helplessness. Mimi stood by the wooden barrel, watching as Mi Chang's eyes were blinded by the raised nails, and a smile flashed on his cold little face. End of this chapter. Chapter 8. 008 I want to report. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 8008 I want to report. The smile disappeared in an instant, and then he gave Mi Chang a disdainful glare, snorted coldly, unbuttoned the 2 buttons on the collar of his shirt, wet his clothes and pants, and slowly sat down on the ground, reaching out his palm to make a plea for help. Help me, help me, help me, help me, help me. Mi Chang's painful cries had long attracted the attention of the neighbors from all directions. It wasn't that they wanted to meddle, but rather that Mi Chang's cries were too loud and painful, and he was still shouting for help. Although they all annoyed the Mi Daju family, they couldn't ignore their cries for help. Besides, they were quite willing to watch the excitement of the Mi family. So a commotion quickly came from outside the courtyard, and a group of retired and idle elderly men and women fought their lives to squeeze into the courtyard of the Mi family, shouting to others to be careful not to run and fall. The Mi family bathroom is located on the 1st floor, next to the miscellaneous room, facing the door. When a group of elderly people ran into the yard and looked up, they saw Mimi pitifully reaching out for help. There was also a person sitting next to her, with a wooden board nailed to her face and trembling hands supporting the board to relieve pain. However, her mouth was not idle, and some elderly people howled in the back of their ears, feeling noisy. The bathroom floor was dripping with bright red blood, looking very terrifying. Mimi's eyes lit up as she saw many elderly people coming and quickly shouted for help. Help, help me. At this moment, Mimi was genuinely shouting for help. As a person of 2 generations, she had never been so eager for someone to come and save her, because it was so smelly and disgusting. If it weren't for her being used to the smell of zombies and having nothing in her stomach, she would have vomited long ago. I was careless, calculated everything, but forgot to calculate Mi Chang's current state. When Mi Chang was injured in his eyes, the pain caused him to relax and excrete feces and urine together. He was now howling and vomiting, and the pain in his eyes was enough for him to endure. Now his stomach also hurts, and he has lost such a big face. He was in a state of shortness of breath and the pain was unbearable. He rolled his eyes and fainted. The wailing stopped, and Mimi turned her head to look at him with envy and anger. You really fainted, what should I do? I also want to faint. Damn it. If I had known earlier, I wouldn't have fed them some laxatives. Just switch to some individual ones. Holding his breath, he looked up at the outside of the yard. The dozen or so elderly men and women who came to save people had already run back to the yard and vomited. Not a single one was looking at her. What pity, pity, it was all forgotten. As for Mi Chang, no one cared. Okay, in order to avoid suffering a bit, let's save ourselves. If you're holding your breath, hold it for a longer time. If you hold it for too long, you'll faint. Mimi didn't shout for help anymore, so she closed her eyes and lay on the ground holding her breath. Before closing her eyes, she didn't forget to roll up her sleeves and expose the scars on her arm. The people outside vomited for a full 3 minutes, and Mimi also held it for 3.5 minutes. At this time, her strong physique as a superpower was reflected, and she had not fainted yet. Perhaps due to suffering, the old men and women outside stood up firmly, covering their noses and leaving the Me family yard far away, and then ran out to call for help. Finally, 7 minutes later, the people from the neighborhood committee arrived, and 9 minutes later, the people from the street also arrived. They first vomited together, then retreated far away, and then discussed how to save the person. 9.5 minutes later, Mimi finally couldn't hold on and fainted. She didn't know what happened afterwards, but when she regained consciousness, she requested to be discharged as soon as possible. There's no way, it smells too bad, she can't bear it for a moment. A female doctor standing in the ward, wearing a gas mask, gave Mimi a pitiful look and comforted, "You are all injured and severely malnourished. You must be hospitalized. You want to be discharged, but I still want to go home. Who can bear the stench? Even with a gas mask, she doesn't want to stay. It's so disgusting." As the female doctor spoke these 2 words, Mimi had already started to vomit wildly on the bedside, with nothing in her stomach. In order to calculate for the Mi Daju family, she didn't eat anything last night or this morning, and vomited nothing but acid water. Her stomach was burning and painful. Where is this? There was nothing left to vomit, and all the water was gone. Mimi held her breath and asked the female doctor. The female doctor returned happily, "Shipyard Hospital." Mimi was taken aback and said, "Hospital? How can there be a foul odor in the hospital? Shouldn't it be the smell of disinfectant? Can you say that Midaju and his wife were sent in? By the way, there is also Mi Chang. He has an eye injury and definitely needs to be taken to the hospital. In that case, the shipyard hospital is the first choice. Firstly, it is close to home, and secondly, Mi Chang is a family member of the shipyard employees, and the cost of medical treatment is only half." The female doctor looked puzzled on Mimi's face and kindly explained, "There's a couple and a girl in the hospital who should have diarrhea, so the hospital has such a strong smell, but it's just too strong and unscientific." Mimi felt a deep hatred upon hearing this. "Damn it, you're so careless again." She predicted that Midaju and Xiao Fenghua would lose face, but she didn't expect them to come to the hospital, let alone Mina. If only Mi Chang was close, and now all 4 of the family have arrived, the consequences would be Mimi lay next to the bed and vomited for a while, feeling really overwhelmed. "Can we transfer to another hospital? I'm really not good at it." The female doctor saw her like this and thought that many patients in the hospital either requested to be discharged or transferred. The inpatient department and outpatient department quickly ran out of people, so she nodded in agreement. "Okay, let me ask the First People's Hospital if they still accept it." The female doctor turned around and closed the door, and Mimi quickly got up from the bed, got off the ground, put on her shoes, and ran out. "Holding it for too long will make you dizzy if you don't run anymore. Be careful to avoid the crowd, run out of the hospital gate, and see the police standing at the entrance to guide patients and their families." Mimi is happy. The time is just right, there's no need for her to go again. Mimi walked weakly towards the police officers and grabbed their wrists, intermittently speaking weakly, "Comrade Public Security, I want to report to the police, and at the same time, I will report the director of the logistics department of the shipyard, Mi Daju, for corruption and bribery." Xiao Fenghua, the head of the kitchen team in the shipyard cafeteria, dug a corner of socialism and stole shipyard food to enjoy. Mi Daju has betrayed the country, the organization, the party, and the people, and is suspected of defecting to the enemy. Can we talk about it after being convicted? De Fengzi will buckle it up for him first. Being grabbed by a little girl's wrist and unable to let go, the young police officer blushed. Upon hearing that someone was going to report to the police, he immediately took it seriously. Just as he was about to ask a question, the platoon leader of the nearby troops stood up. "Take it back and ask, this is really not a place." The little police officer nodded and saw that Mimi couldn't even stand steadily. He wanted to help, but he was afraid of damaging the little girl's reputation, so he was immediately at a loss. Mimi didn't make it difficult for him either. She straightened her chest and stood up, strong, with a positive expression on her face. I am willing to cooperate with the public security comrades to do a good job and resolutely fight against all enemy agents and behaviors that undermine national security. Young police officer, unit commander, ... It's not necessary, it's really not necessary. End of this chapter. Chapter 9. 009 is not my business. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 9009 is not my business. Having finished speaking, Mimi was sweating profusely and couldn't help but reach out and wipe the beads of sweat from her forehead. Your arm. The young police officer stared at Mimi's exposed arm with wide eyes, looking shocked. Mimi glanced at her arm and sighed, that's why I called the police. Let's go, let's go. It's too hot outside, sweating all over in the summer. Her injury hasn't healed yet, it hurts so much. I don't know how much it hurts. You deserve to be single. The young police officer and unit commander who have not yet found a partner, said how could she be so capable? Isn't the last sentence supposed to be from them? Mimi started, followed by a police officer and a soldier. Don't mention Doraemon, there are still many people discussing behind the scenes. When she arrived at the police station, Mimi cried and talked about how her parents had made great contributions to the country, how her uncle's family mistreated her, from Mina's mental breakdown to Qiao Fenghua's mastery of the art of beating people. From Miqiang's constant flirtatious gaze at her, to her catching Miqiang stealing a peek at her shower, the original owner had suffered a lot in the past 5 years. Finally, she pulled up her sleeve and cried, I don't have a good place all over my body. Just now, the hospital doctor didn't let me leave the hospital, saying that if I don't stay, my life will be in danger. But how can I stay in the hospital? I don't have the money, and I have to replace her. Mina went to the countryside to contribute to her country. How could she have that time? After finishing speaking, pull up her sleeves and start naming witnesses. Apart from neighbors around her who can testify to prove that she is not lying, Mi Daju and her family have been abusing her for a long time. There are also teachers and classmates from the school who can prove that she was forced to drop out of school. The police officer looked sympathetic, and the platoon leader looked at Mimi with a pitiful gaze. Finally, he sighed. The platoon leader said, you can talk about Mi Daju again. Also, you know that the odor from the hospital and shipyard today was caused by them. What's going on here needs further investigation. Perhaps they are really spies, causing the shipyard to smell foul and unable to produce, hindering the country's development process. Well, it seems to make some sense. It seems like the truth has been revealed. The more the platoon leader thinks about it, the more he thinks about it, and occasionally nods in agreement with his own views. Mimi is a bit confused. Lying trough. And this good thing. Will things go smoothly without her having to take action? Mimi squinted her eyes and looked indignant. My parents have been loyal to our country for generations. Unexpectedly, my uncle. If I had known, my parents wouldn't have given them anything in their jobs. Wouldn't this have tarnished their face? We must resolutely crack down on and stop such enemy agents who disregard the country and the people, and we must not let their conspiracy succeed. Next, Mimi cleared herself up. You should know that Mi Daju is guilty, but not reporting the truth is also a sin. She needs to explain this clearly. I also feel that Mi Daju's corruption is not going well lately. They don't earn much, but Mi Daju's family has a lot of expenses. Guangmina buys new clothes every month, right? Who adds new clothes every month? There's also Mi Chang. He causes trouble for his family outside, and every time it's Mi Daju who spends a lot of money to deal with it. Mi Daju's expenses are even higher. I saw several watches alone. Why did he get so many watch tickets? Qiao Fenghua brings a pound of meat from home every day. What about this meat ticket? It definitely can't be from home. Who gave it to her for free? Uncle's family's meals are all cooked by me. I used to be young and didn't understand these things, but now that I'm older and in high school, I realize that my family is not quite right. I only found out after attending high school. It only took me a year, from suspicion to finding evidence, and it didn't take a long time. Mimi's words were understood by the platoon leader and the police officer, and they exchanged a glance. Okay, we have taken note of everything you said. We will investigate and clear your name. Can you tell us about the evidence of reporting Midaju's betrayal of the country? It's not difficult to explain this matter. Mimi quickly talked about the hidden grid in Mina's room and also mentioned the photo of Midaju in the study. The one in Mina's room was not originally a dark room. It was when I was a child playing around and damaging the floor, and I got angry with my mother. The story made me angry with her. Later, Mina occupied my room and drove me to the miscellaneous room, so I forgot about it. Today, Midaju and his family were not around, and I was also very angry. It was only then that I thought of finding evidence. The first thing I went to was Midaju and Xiao Fenghua's room, but I couldn't find anything. Then I went to the study and found out that Midaju had replaced our leader's portrait with his. After discovering this situation, I immediately felt that it was not right, but I didn't think much about it. Later, I went to Mina's room to find evidence of his corruption, and found evidence under the 2 floors that I had damaged before. I looked at all the evidence, and it seemed that the person involved was the spy mentioned in the previous 2 months' report. Finally finished speaking, Mimi breathed a sigh of relief and stared at them for a reply. Give me a quick talk about whether to catch or not, so that I can continue planning. The 2 of them lived up to Mimi's expectations and went out together, but soon returned. We will investigate the matter between Midaju and his wife thoroughly. If what you said is true, then Midaju and his wife will definitely be subject to legal punishment. Can you talk about Mi Chang's injury again? How did he get injured? Why is there a wooden board with nails in the bathroom? Mimi had already figured it out and quickly provided the answer. It's too hot, my cluttered room has no ventilated windows, and I'm sweating all over. I'm also injured all over, and I feel really uncomfortable, so I thought of taking a shower when there's no one at home. I'm not sure why Mi Chang came back. After closing the door, I was in a hurry to take a shower and didn't notice that the door was not properly inserted, so he managed to break in. As for the wooden board with nails, I prepared it in advance for the wooden bucket I want to repair for bathing. If you don't believe it, you can go home and find it. There is a leak in the upper part of the bucket. Midaju and his team won't care about these things, they will only let me do them. It's my job sooner or later. It's better to do them first to avoid getting beaten. To put it simply, Mi Chang's injury was purely an accident, and it had nothing to do with me. It was his misfortune. After listening, the 2 of them went out again and had someone bring dinner to Mimi. A bowl of corn flour congee, owawatu, 2 fried vegetables, and no meat in vegetables. Mimi, who had been hungry all day, was a little disgusted, but had to eat. Corn noodles are not as thin as later generations, they are a bit sore, and the steamed buns are not as delicious as those made in restaurants. They are not sweet at all, let alone vegetables. At first glance, they don't use much oil. End of this chapter. Chapter 10. 010 Black Market Shipping, 1. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 10. 010 Black Market Shipping, 1. After finally finishing dinner, it was getting dark. This time, another elderly police officer came in with the platoon leader. The 2 of them sat opposite Mimi as soon as they entered. Comrade, we have a general understanding of what you said, and the situation is basically true. We have also found evidence of Midaju's corruption. We need to thank you for helping the country uncover a big worm. Mimi looked frightened and waved her hand repeatedly. No, I didn't do anything, I just told the truth. My parents have taught me since I was young not to lie, to be a good citizen who is honest, law-abiding, and has national interests above all else. It is only right for me to do so. Just my uncle Sai. Why did they suffer? The country pays him a considerable amount of salary every month, how could they do such a thing? Mimi shook her head in pain, feeling even more enlightened when she looked at the platoon leader and the old police officer across from her. She hadn't wasted a year in high school and now she's going to the countryside, which is a bit regrettable. Next, the two of them further investigated the persecution of Mimi by the Midaju family and found evidence before finally releasing Mimi. Before leaving, Mimi asked, "My uncle, can they still come back?" The platoon leader shook his head and said, "We definitely can't come back. Don't worry, they can't hurt you anymore." The old police officer continued, "Mi Daju and Xiao Fenghua will definitely be sentenced. Mi Chang is seriously injured and cannot be discharged from the hospital yet. As for what he committed, we need to further investigate before we can make a decision. Mina, she didn't do anything wrong. Xiao Fenghua was the main one who abused you. We need to ask again before we can make a decision." Mimi nodded and said, "Okay, I see. I should go to the countryside in 4 days. I hope there will be some results before I go to the countryside." The platoon leader quickly put forward a suggestion, "Mi Daju is taking over your father's shift. Now that he has committed a crime, you can continue with this work, you don't have to." Mimi waved her hand and Yoshimasa sternly said, "I won't go to the shipyard. My uncle has caused so much harm to the shipyard. It's our Mimi family who's sorry for the shipyard and our country. Let's give these 2 jobs to those in need. I will talk to the factory director later. It is our citizens' obligation to support national construction and respond to the country's call. As contemporary young people with knowledge and culture, we should enter the countryside and help farmers build their homes." Bao Bao is super powerful, he talks big and big. Mimi casually gave herself a like. As soon as she said this, all the police officers and soldiers present looked at her with admiration, making Mimi blush. "Damn it. Don't look anymore, even if you look at your face, you'll be dripping blood. Can I say it's paving the way for never coming back again in the future?" Amidst the admiration of the crowd, Mimi walked out of the police station gate and waited for over 100 meters before turning into an empty alley. "I can't go back to my home for now. The smell hasn't dissipated yet, so I won't say anything. My home must be in a mess. Let's talk about it tomorrow." Mimi thought for a moment, she won't come back in the future, and the house must be dealt with. She also wants to sell another batch of goods to exchange for some money and take them to the countryside to see if she can buy some egg noodles. There are many things in the space, but none of them. There is no import or export of eggs and noodles in the port. It was already 8 months after the apocalypse when we entered the city again, and eggs and noodles could not be found at all. However, in this era, eggs are the most common way to supplement nutrition. They are not abrupt when taken out, and noodles are easy to eat. Once cooked, they can be mixed with some meat sauce for a meal. The days ahead may not be easy for her. She needs to be prepared and not panic if she has money in hand. The more money she has, the better. Although it is an fictional world, the historical trends are generally the same. Find a place to carry someone, take out a bamboo basket and cover it with a black cloth. After thinking about it, I decided to put on some elderly makeup for myself. Mimi hunched her body. There were 2 men guarding the entrance of the alley, and when they saw someone coming, their expressions became tense. They kept staring at Mimi until her face appeared in the moonlight, and then they relaxed slightly. "What do you do?" Mimi clicked on the bamboo basket behind her and lowered her voice, deliberately making her voice hoarse and unpleasant. "Send some good goods to your boss," she said as she spoke. Mimi took the bamboo basket down from behind and placed it on the ground. "Take the things to your boss for a look. I'll wait here and tell him that I still have a lot of such goods in my hands. Whether or not to do this business is up to me to decide. This is the only chance." After Mimi finished speaking, she leaned against the wall and stopped talking. The 2 of them didn't move, fearing that Mimi might be a bait. They were specifically fishing for them. You should know that the investigation above is tight, and a certain committee keeps an eye on them all day. If it weren't for the strong background of the boss, they wouldn't be able to do this business. After waiting for a long time, Mimi didn't see any other movements. The two of them couldn't hold on any more and walked forward, lifting the black cloth and looking inside. Oh. Good guy, they're all in high demand. The two carefully covered the black cloth and looked at Mimi with a serious expression. Old lady, where did you get this goods? Don't ask, just ask and leave. I'll tell you what's on your mind. Don't worry, I only come for money and don't do anything else. The two exchanged a glance, and one turned around carrying a bamboo basket and ran into the alley. After a while, they ran back and gestured for Mimi to follow him. Mimi followed the guide around 6 or 7 alleys, and finally stopped in front of a dilapidated gate. After 3 urgent and slow knocking, the door opened from inside. The person who opened the door glanced at Mimi, then nodded to the guide and turned to signal Mimi to enter. The guide led Mimi to turn around and leave, and Mimi walked in step. Unlike the dilapidated gates and scenery outside, the small courtyard is clean and tidy. Mimi glanced around but didn't look much. The visitor kept observing Mimi, but when they saw that she didn't look around, they were somewhat satisfied with her. Entering the hall, there were still 6 or 7 people inside. The person nodded at a burly man sitting on top and said, "Boss, here we are." The burly man tilted his head and carefully scrutinized Mimi. End of this chapter.